If you do a Google search for literary agent, you are likely going to get a ton of results that are really difficult to sift through. It might feel nearly impossible to pick an agent out of all of the ones available when it's difficult to figure out how they differ from one another. In fact, I looked it up, and Query Tracker, which is one of the main literary agent databases, has over 1,600 agent listings. So out of all of those, how do you know who is a great fit for your project, and how do you determine who to reach out to? It really is important to tailor your queries and build a list of ideal agents so that you aren't just blast mailing your query letter to every single agent out there, because this ensures you have a higher chance of success and finding that right match. If you've watched some of my prior videos, you may have heard me compare finding a literary agent to dating, and it really is like that because you want to ensure you are finding someone who really suits you. So today I'm going to walk you through the top 5 qualities that you should consider when you are choosing which literary agents to reach out to, and using these 5 elements whenever you are evaluating agents will ultimately ensure you are being more thoughtful about who you're querying and give you the highest chance possible of scoring representation. Now, on my channel, I offer a lot of tips for finding a literary agent, so if you are anywhere along the querying journey, I recommend subscribing so that you can check out all of those videos that I post every week. So the first thing that you need to consider when you are searching for a literary agent and determining who to reach out to, it's also the most obvious one, it is their genre specialties. So this is admittedly the most important factor to consider when you are reaching out to literary agents. But at the same time, it's flawed because genre, as we know, can be extremely vague and difficult to decipher. For instance, the thriller category can encompass everything from psychological domestic suspense to espionage novels. And those are 2 very different styles that appeal to very different readers, and ultimately likely different agents would take on one versus the other. So whenever an agent just lists thriller on their list of genres, it is not always super helpful. At the same time, agents often specialize in multiple genres, and they might even represent authors who are fiction authors and nonfiction authors. So their specialties can be quite broad, which again makes it even more difficult to decide if you should reach out to them. The biggest mistake that I see writers make when querying is just look that the agent represents their genre, such as historical fiction, and then they reach out to every single agent that mentions historical fiction in their profile. That really isn't a great approach for the reasons I just mentioned. Historical fiction could encompass all types of different novels, and maybe it doesn't quite align with the book that you're creating. Ultimately, that approach is just too broad, and you need to be a little bit more specific and tailored with how you think about the agents you want to reach out to. So with that in mind, you need to dive a little bit deeper and be a little bit more deliberate with how you assess the agent and if they're a good match for you. So to recap, yes, genre specialties is critical, and you don't want to reach out to an agent who doesn't list your genre. However, you need to go beyond genre and dive a little bit deeper. So what else should you look for? The second element I'm going to talk about, I would argue, is just as important as the genre specialty. It is the agent's past projects. Again, because that genre classification can be so vague, it's really important for you to look at books that that agent has published. Now, you might not have read those books, you might not be familiar with them. That is completely fine. But take a look at them, read the description online. If they're on Amazon, read those sample pages that Amazon lets you read, and see if they have a similar feel and look to your novel. See if they appeal to the same audience as well. You really don't have to read them cover to cover, you don't have to purchase the books, but they will really give you a better sense of what the agent is looking for and what types of stories they like than just the broad genre classification. A pro tip here is that if you determine the agent has represented a book that actually is pretty similar to yours or appeals to a similar audience, you can actually mention that in your query letter. You can say, I saw that you represented so-and-so, and my book has a similar feel, or my book appeals to the similar genre. That does 2 things. 1, it shows the agent that you've done your research on them and you haven't just seen, the genre listing on their profile and sent your query to them. You've dug deeper, which is really appealing. And 2, it shows them that you've already thought about why you're potentially a good match. So I definitely recommend doing that. And if you're looking for more tips on how to write a successful query letter, I have a video that goes into my top elements of a successful query letter. The third factor that you need to consider when you are building a list of agents that you want to reach out to is their level of experience. So it may be tempting, or your first instinct may be to reach out to the highest ranking agents at each literary agency, the ones who have decades of experience and are top ranking in the industry. This definitely has its own pros. It means that if that agent offers you representation, you are working with the best of the best, and it also means that they likely have a demonstrated track record of selling books to major publishing houses. So both of those elements make it very appealing to query those top-notch agents. However, there are benefits to reaching out to associate agents or junior agents at the literary agency as well. They are going to be earlier in their career. However, because of that, they are likely going to be able to give your project much more attention. They're going to have more time to dedicate to it, and if they take you on, it means that they're really going to give you that passion because they want your project to be as successful as possible as they are building their own career. Also, these junior or associate agents are typically more open to taking on new clients. The higher level agents often will close their submission inbox, or they'll have, enough clients to kind of sustain them with work for a while, and they might not really be as open to taking on someone brand new. Whereas associate agents and junior agents are really looking to build their list and connect with new writers, so I wouldn't discount them, and I would definitely look into it. You can always query a mixed bag. You can do some higher level agents and some junior or associate agents. However, you can only typically query one agent per literary agency, so you kind of have to be strategic there with thinking about who at the agency is your best fit. The next factor to consider is the agent's working style. So you are going to be working very, very closely with your agent on sensitive material. Likely your book means a lot to you, and you want someone who understands it and understands you. And agents, just like every other person, have a variety of personalities. So some agents are really warm and friendly, and they actually become very personally close with the writers who they represent. Other agents may be a little bit more formal and businesslike and have more of a transactional relationship. At the end of the day, this is a business relationship, so some prefer to take that approach. Now, admittedly, you may not understand the agent's working style before you sit down to have a conversation with them, which does typically happen before they will offer you representation, but you can get a sense of the agent's personality from their bio on their website, as well as their Twitter feed if they have one. A lot of agents do, and they'll be a little bit more candid about their personality on Twitter, so you can check that out as well. Think about who you would really jive with and what type of working style would best suit you, and then try to reach out to agents who seem to align with that. The last element to consider when you are thinking about who you want to reach out to at a literary agency is their background. So agents actually come from many different types of backgrounds. Some have been agents their entire careers. This is probably the most common background you'll see. Other agents may have transitioned from being an editor at a publishing house or working at a bookstore, so they're basically working from different sides of the industry. And other agents had entirely different careers, and then they transitioned to the literary agency field. They might have been a lawyer, which actually does translate to the literary agent job because they're dealing with rights and representation, or some of them have also worked in film, which also translates really well to the literary agency business because they actually sell film rights often when they are selling the book rights as well. So that's an interesting avenue that the agent can come from. Lastly, some agents are also published authors. So some have published a few books and then transitioned to agenting, or some continue to publish books and agent at the same time, which of course gives them a unique lens because they understand where you're coming from on the author side. So think about what might appeal to you. Would you like to work with someone who understands that writing background, or maybe you are really interested in getting a film deal for your book and you would like to work with someone who has that background? It could help you pick one agent from another whenever you're reading their bios. So I hope this video taught you that building a list of agents that you want to reach out to should really be more than just looking at the genres they represent and reaching out to anyone who represents your genre. Because doing research about each agent and really tailoring your approach will ultimately enhance your chances of success and will also ensure that the agent you do ultimately sign with will be a really good match for you because you've already done that research from the outset. Let me know in the comments below if you are currently querying literary agents and where you're at in the process, and if you have any questions about how you should approach the agents. If you are in the process of querying, I recommend checking out my video on legitimate ways to search for a literary agent. I talk about the different databases and different methods you can use to actually find the names of the agents that you want to reach out to. If you found this video helpful, it would mean a lot to me if you hit that like button. And if you are anywhere along the book writing journey, I recommend subscribing to my channel. I would love to have you around so we can talk more about books and getting literary agent representation and getting published. I'd love to help you however I can. Thanks so much for watching and happy writing.